I'm Jane Velez-Mitchell, and this is Foxy. She's a rescue who was found on the streets of Fresno, California, and I'm very delighted to be beginning my new series on animal rights and leaders in the animal rights movement with one of my dear friends, Donny Moss, who is with Max, another rescue. There's Max, and Max is pretty much blind, and Donny and I and Foxy and Max have had wonderful afternoons together discussing animal rights issues, and we're going to bring you in on the conversation. Donny is the founder of theirturn.net, theirturn.net. Please check it out. Please join and become part of his community, and together we can speak for the voiceless. My Jane Velez-Mitchell Facebook page is going to become a clearinghouse for nightly conversations, and that will be posted at 7 p.m. Eastern with leaders of the animal rights movement about where our movement is going. Americans are decent people, and they're starting to really figure out the horrors that are going on behind closed doors when it comes to factory farming, when it comes to laboratories, when it comes to puppy mills, when it comes to many, many issues. And Donny Moss in theirturn.net is addressing all of those issues. So Donny, take it away. Tell us why you started this online magazine, theirturn.net.
You know, I wanted to have a media outlet that reports on animal rights news from the perspective of animal rights activists. And I really do feel that animal rights is the social justice movement of our time. When you think about it, women and African Americans and LGBTs and other marginalized communities have achieved so many successes in terms of social justice and advances in civil rights. And I do think that the time has come for everyone to be a voice for those who don't have one. And so Their Turn is a platform for animal rights news and commentary with an edge and calls to action.
And the groups that you mentioned obviously still have a long way to go, but that doesn't mean we need to turn a blind eye. And I'm a member of some of those groups, as a member of the LGBT community, as Puerto Rican and Irish, as I think one of the other persecuted minorities, a vegan. I feel that, yes, we have to fight for all those causes, for anyone who is persecuted, but that doesn't mean that we have to ignore the billions of animals who are persecuted. In fact, it's not man versus nature. It's not either or. Really, compassion is the most important thing for humans to do for the survival of the human species.
And I think I just want to clarify, I think the time has come for the animal rights movement, not only because so many advances have been made for other marginalized groups, but also because the world is finally paying attention with movies like Blackfish and The Cove, raising public consciousness about the plight of animals. Let's seize on that right now and get these folks to connect the dots in their own lives, you know, with what they might be eating or wearing or where they're going for entertainment.
So what are some of the big stories that you're covering on theirturn.net?
Well, the stories run the gamut. And I try not to do stuff that's already out there with all the other groups are reporting on. But sometimes a story is just too big to ignore. Like today, everyone reported on the fact that a carriage horse in New York City escaped and fled down 11th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan on Sunday morning. And had it not been a Sunday morning, tragedy would have ensued. But the horse was corralled, and as far as I know, he or she is okay. But it was symbolic of the utter chaos that surrounds this industry, the operation of horse-drawn carriages in Midtown Manhattan in 2014. And so I used that, this escape, this incident, as a hook to talk about the status of what's going on with the issue.
Well, what is going on with the issue? Mayor Bill de Blasio was elected, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, on a platform that he was going to get rid of the carriage horses. Now, when I say get rid, it doesn't mean they're going to the glue factory. That means that they would go to sanctuaries, and there are people who have made the commitment to care for these animals. So the irony is, and I live in an area where I see these horses every day, that you have some people who want to keep the carriage horse industry going, say, save our horses. But indeed, it's those who want to take them off the streets that believe that they are entitled to say, save our horses. But that's neither here nor there. What about Mayor de Blasio?
So the mayor has stated time and again that he is committed to taking these horses off the streets and out of harm's way. The question is, how is he going to do it? Is he going to do it legislatively, which would require a majority vote in our city's legislative body, the city council? Or is he going to employ some other method of taking the horses off the streets? And one question that I've had for the administration, and I haven't been able to get an answer to it, is the Central Park required by law to allow horses into the park? Could Central Park forbid horses from coming into the park? Because that in and of itself would bring an end to the horse-drawn carriage trade. I mean, when you think about it, the joggers and bicyclists and pedestrians have to share the public pathway with a private for-profit business. And those horses contaminate the pathway with manure, and they're in the way. And bicyclists have to veer out of the way of manure, and I've heard of incidents where they crash into joggers. I mean, why is a private industry allowed to take over a public space, jeopardizing public safety and contaminating the air that we're breathing while exercising? It just doesn't make any sense.
Let me say this. This is an open conversation. If anybody from the carriage horse industry wants to come on my Facebook page and talk about it, I'd be very happy to have them on because I have a lot of questions for them, as well as Mayor de Blasio or anybody from the administration of the mayor's office. This is an open conversation, so Mayor de Blasio or any of your folks, if you're watching, you're invited on because we really like to know what the status is. I personally saw you, I believe it was on Jon Stewart, you said the carriage horses have to go. The time has come. This is the 21st century. It's antiquated. Words to that effect. That was a long time ago. What has happened since then? So, you were sort of coming on, Mayor, as sort of the anti-politicians, which I thought was very refreshing. So I'd really like to find out. Now, let's move on to another subject. You had some articles about climate change and meat production. Tell me about that.
Well, it's interesting because just 1 month ago, New York City hosted the People's Climate March, which was the biggest climate event in history. It was truly historic. And then 1 month later, in virtually the same spot, hundreds of people gathered to celebrate the consumption of meat, which we all know to be one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases and climate change. And I don't know the extent to which people who consume meat understand the environmental impact that their actions are having. And of course, there are all the health implications and, of course, the animal abuse that's inherent in animal agriculture. But it is crazy when you think about it that in the same spot, people are celebrating the consumption of a polluter.
Well, indeed, I thought I saw on theirturn.net, your online magazine, that you had pictures of people wearing Stop Climate Change T-shirts lined up to buy meat products from a food stand. And apparently there were people who even came up to them and said, hey, you're right now contributing to climate change by buying meat, because meat production is one of the biggest contributors to climate change. The methane gas that the animals produce, the amount of grain that it takes to create one animal, which if equitably distributed around the world would help solve hunger. In fact, there are many who argue that world hunger could be wiped out today if we stopped eating animals and were more intelligent and more efficient about the foodstuffs, the grains and the soybeans that we feed to the animals. Just think about your own pet and the amount of food that a pet eats. Think about a cow and think about the amount of food that animal has to eat over the course of time. So obviously there are people like Bill Gates, for example, who are working on coming up with alternatives that are just as tasty to the average meat eater, and he's very involved in that. So what did you cover vis-a-vis people who are so-called environmentalists going up and buying hamburgers or whatever they were buying at a meat at a food stand?
It's an interesting question because I did attend the climate march as a participant, and I also went to the after party, which was basically a street fair with all of these food carts lined up selling meat products. And I just couldn't help but notice the irony, and I reported on it. and it was the most popular story to date since I launched Their Turn. I mean, thousands of people viewed and shared that story. And I mean, truth be told, how can we expect agribusiness and restaurants to stop selling and slaughtering and consuming animals if people in the environmental movement are doing it? I mean, as we learned in the documentary film Cowspiracy, which everybody needs to see when it's released publicly, the very groups that should be speaking out against one of the biggest polluters, animal agriculture, are too scared to do it because their dues-paying members don't want to be told not to eat meat. So we have to clean up our own house as we go after others.
Yes, absolutely. And I always tell people, if you want to really understand what's going on with factory farming, watch Farm to Fridge. It's an 11-minute video that you can just Google, Farm to Fridge. Just go to Google and Google it and just watch 11 minutes. It's life-changing. So many people have really had their relationship and their attitude toward farm animals really revolutionized by that one short film. Remember, a pig has got a higher IQ than little Foxy here, and they are kept, many of them, the females, billions of them indeed over the years, in crates the size of their bodies, never able to turn around, and they become psychotic. If you did it to a dog for a week or two, you would be considered an animal abuser. But legally, there are exceptions to these violations of common decency in agribusiness. Now, of course, there are states that are passing bans on gestation crates. California has passed a ban on pig gestation crates in the form of Proposition 2, which is going into effect. That was passed by the voters. Americans are decent people, and when they find out what's going on, they do take action. So what would you say to folks, Donny, as we wrap up? And this is the first, as I was telling my friends and folks who follow me, first of many conversations we're going to have with leaders of the animal rights movement. We're going to air them day after day, and we're going to get more sophisticated. This is our first demo, and as we get more sophisticated, we're going to be able to take questions. But we wanted to get started. The first step on a 1,000-mile journey is the toughest. So what would you say to folks to tell them to check out theirturn.net and to join this movement of ours?
Yeah, please visit the website, subscribe to the daily or weekly newsletter. We're on Facebook, theirturn.net. Their Turn on Facebook and at Their Turn on Twitter. I just want to relay one final point, and that is the journey to a vegan lifestyle, a cruelty-free lifestyle, is different for everybody. When I was making the documentary film Blinders about the horse-drawn carriage controversy, it hit me one day that the compassion that I was feeling for these horses, I should really have that same compassion for all animals. Why should this horse be treated with any more kindness and love than any animal that was on my plate? And so that was sort of how I started my journey to where I am now. And I hope that people who have latched onto the blackfish and the cove, the orcas and the dolphins, will think about what they're seeing with those animals, and then they're going to extend their compassion to the animals who might be on their plates.
Yes, the animals behind closed doors, living in a way that a lot of people don't want Americans to see. Donny Moss, I want to thank you. You're one of my heroes, and you're the first of many heroes I will interview here on my Facebook page, Jane Velez-Mitchell Facebook, and folks watching at home, spread the word, okay? They can't speak for themselves.
Max and I say thank you for having us on the show.
Foxy says, see you soon, Max. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.